there's no way around it. This is shit. This is by far the worst film that Matthew Vaughn has ever made. I actually don't know where to start with this film because it's so convoluted. It's such a simple story from the start, and then it just goes to places in which you never really wanted it to go, and then you think you get it, and then it just adds something to it, and you're like, right, is this supposed to be exciting or not? So we might as well start with a synopsis. The story follows Ellie Conway, portrayed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who actually is the daughter of Ron Howard. An introverted spy novelist who seldom leaves her home is drawn into the real world of espionage when the plot of her books get a little too close to the activities of real life, especially of a sinister underground syndicate. When Aidan, a spy, shows up to save her, he says, from being kidnapped or killed, or both. Ellie and her beloved cat Alfie are plunged into a covert world where nothing and no one is what it seems. I had to make this film fun. I went to see it with two friends and we had to laugh at it. I don't like talking in cinema, but I had to talk in cinema to make this bearable because it was so shocking. Like, sometimes there's films that are so bad that they're good, but this wasn't one of them. And I knew it was going to be bad from the start. So, start of the film takes place and you meet Agent Argylle, and he's on a dance floor portrayed by Henry Cavill, who, look, I love Henry Cavill for being a nerd, yeah. You can see him all on social media, people like fawning over him for his love of Warhammer and the respect for comics and comic nerds and things like that. Fine. But he needs to start getting roles in which he isn't so wooden. So I agree with the Independent's article that this is not a good look for him, especially when he was tipped to be Bond, and this was basically like, kind of like The Kingsman, like a commentary on the spy genre, right? Anyway, Henry Cavill comes in and he's got this stupid square haircut and this awful velvet-like suit. Anyway, he's there and he's being all suave and smooth, and he's approaching Dua Lipa in her first movie role, and she has this kind of like not just got garish dyed blonde hair, and I mean Dua Lipa is a stunning woman, but that hairstyle just, it's not working. But this is coming from a bald man, so don't listen to me and that. Anyway, he approaches her and they start dancing all sensually on the dance floor, and the dialogue's like laughable at this point, but I'm at this point thinking, oh, this is kind of like it's a comment on the genre conventions of being so smooth and suave, and actually it's kind of laughable, like some of the lines that they say. You just think this isn't going to work in real life, and he says something along the lines of, "Do you know the whirlybird?" And she's like, "Of course I know the whirlybird." And then he picks her up and she does a spready across his face and spins her around and round in a circle, and then it does this reverse shot of his face almost buried in a pussy, and then this low angle shot of Dua Lipa smiling and looking down like deranged, and he's just got hands on her ass, and you're just like, well, at least they're having fun, I guess, right? And he spins her around for an aggressively long period of time, and then he puts her down, and then she says something, whispers something in her ear, which you can see in the trailer, which I'd highly recommend because it's cheaper than watching the film, and you'll save 2 hours of your life, which you'll never get back. And she whispers something like, "Oh, well, I'd love to get you to know you more, Agent Argylle." And then the lights turn around, and all they're pointing the guns at him. And then it just goes downhill from there. There's a chase scene in which he tries to get John Cena, who plays a guy called Wyatt, and Ariana DeBois, who plays some girl lady. She's literally hardly in the film because the first time you see her, she dies. She gets shot by Lipper Dipper, who's on this motorcycle, and she just shoots loads, and one hits DeBois's character, and Henry Cavill's like, shit, she's gonna die, and then Richard E. Grant's introduced, and he plays a bit role, and he's the director, and he's like, just go after her, Argylle. So he's like, shit, I can't go after her because my Jeep's got a flat tyre because of Lipper Dipper. So he looks to the side, kind of like Indiana Jones would or James Bond would, and he gets this like yellow fucking Jeep thing. It looks fragile. Alright, it looks just fragile. And then you see Lipper Dipper driving down, and out of nowhere, Argylle, I can't call him Argylle because it sounds so stupid, Henry Cavill is driving in this CGI truck in like this is Greece, by the way, and it's on a mountains scape, or like a big hill, and he's just driving over the rooftops of all these houses which are like made of concrete, and like he's just going through the walls like bam bam bam, and he's being jostled around like his head would snap. He would have like so many like spinal fractures at this point. But what's laughable about it is that it's just the CG. It's just so bad. It's not like the Flash level, and it's probably not Spy Kids level, but it is pretty bad. It's pretty shocking because you can just tell that they didn't want to do this practically. And this is the thing that kind of carries on in this film, is that it just doesn't fit, just not right. The story's not there. The characters are not there. There isn't any scenes in this film, and I've just described what's the first action scene of the whole film, and what's made Matthew Vaughn's previous films, which I'm going to list off now because the first half of that man's career, or even 2/3, maybe in 3/4, has been Chef's Kiss, stellar. You started with Layer Cake, which is the film that got arguably Daniel Craig as Bond. You've got Stardust, which is a classic in of itself. You know, Charlie Cox, legend, Daredevil, right? You've then got the 2 Kingsman films. You've got Kick-Ass. You've got X-Men First Class. Just the man. It's like he's got a Midas touch. He can touch a superhero comic and make it into a blockbuster that just sells, right? But the thing that unites pretty much all of them, except Layer Cake, is that most of them are adaptations of something with original source material that I was found in books or comics, right? And I think since he's tried to go his own way in writing his own stuff, creating original IPs, it's just not working. It's just bad. It's just, everything's wooden, and not in like a stoic wooden way, it's just wooden. There is no scenes in this film, there is no tension, there's no fun interactions, everything's telegraphed with the characters' relationships, and when it's not telegraphed about what's going to happen with the film, it's just such a curveball that you're like, what? Like, the plot twists don't make sense. When you actually start thinking about the film, which will give you a migraine, it just doesn't make sense. All the twists, you just go, well, why would they do that? Clearly Matthew Vaughn wanted to kind of carry on his Kingsman expansionism plan and include a new spy universe within the Kingsman universe to create his own cinematic universe. And I understand him wanting to do that. I think it could have been a really cool idea on paper. Just like the marketing stunt they did. You can, if you go to Waterstones or any bookshop, you could probably find an Argylle book there. And I was genuinely like stunned. I was like, oh, is this an adaptation? I just didn't know about it. But no, it's not an adaptation. It's a marketing stunt. And the facile kind of paper thin nature of that marketing stunt is carried over into the film. There's nothing really there when you look under the hood. And that's a shame because Kingsman really worked. It really did work. It's a fantastic film. And the reason that Kingsman worked, I think, is that it took the genre conventions of the spy genre and put it through a grittier, more zany, I'll give it that, but almost realistic lens, I would argue, in terms of that, because you're going through it through Eggsy's eyes, who's from a council estate in London, and he doesn't want to be given this life, and he's resistant to it, you, as an audience member, can feel for that, because that will be a scary situation for any person that isn't within that world, right? Because, you know, in James Bond, no one goes, hey up Bond, I don't want to be a bloody part of this, you bloody rapist, or you creep, or you murderer. Don't care if you do it for king or queen, it's killing, right? And he's a bit like that at the start, and he doesn't want to be part of it. And that was compelling, right? So the grittiness, the over-the-top action, and that hero's journey, that's just not there with this. Ellie Conway is flat. She just whines all throughout the film, and when she does do action in the film, it's just totally unconvincing. And then all the zany action that comes as a consequence for Matthew Vaughn's style just feels forced, and it just doesn't have any impact. A real shame.